Many aspiring school leaders believe that the difference between being a principal and an assistant principal is just more responsibility. But after serving my first week as acting principal, I realized something that's very important. The difference isn't just more responsibility, it's actually an entirely new way of leadership thinking. Assistant principals are primarily responsible for running the building. Principals are responsible for designing the systems that run the building. And if you want to become a principal one day, that shift in thinking has to begin before you get the title. Today, I want to talk about 3 shifts that every aspiring principal must understand. What's going on, aspiring school leader? I am Dr. Donovan Smalls II, educator, best-selling author, school leadership coach, and I help aspiring school leaders confidently land their first leadership role and lead with impact from day one. Today, we're talking about a topic that is extremely important, and I think that this topic is going to help you understand what the assistant principalship really is all about. And as you go into your interview as an aspiring leader, many of you are probably trying to be assistant principals or vice principals, whatever they call it in your district or in your region. But this topic is going to help you understand the role and then be able to articulate the responsibilities and the role itself so that it'll give you a better chance, a better opportunity to land your first leadership position. All right, so the topic of today's discussion is the leadership shift between assistant principal and principal. I know you're enjoying this episode, but I want to let you know about my 4-week interview preparation coaching program called Elevate Your Impact. This program is specifically for aspiring school leaders who have an amazing resume. You're ready to lead, but you may need additional support regarding interview preparation. In my 4-week program, you will learn how to clarify and confidently communicate your leadership story, practice scenario-based interview questions with real-time coaching and targeted feedback, and participate in a full one-on-one mock leadership interview with targeted, actionable feedback. So if that's you, if you're an aspiring school leader and you know you need additional support regarding interview preparation, visit my website, donovansmalls2.com/coaching for more information, or click the link in the description to book your call with me today. This past week, I finished my first week as acting principal at an elementary school. And there's one thing that became evident after actually about 2 days, and it's that the difference between being an assistant principal and a principal. See, as an assistant principal, you are primarily an operational leader. That means that you have the responsibility of taking the vision, the mission, the core values of the principal, and then making sure that the building runs smoothly based on the systems that the principal has established, right? You're the one that's going to be responsible for running the fire drills, making sure that you are tending to the needs of staff, right? And I'm not saying that there isn't crossover between being a principal and an assistant principal in terms of roles and responsibilities, but primarily as an AP, you are responsible for making sure that the building runs. Maintenance issues, you're going to tend to those. Any issues that teachers might be having, you're going to tend to those. Discipline, you're going to be tending to those things, right? So whatever truly helps the building run, as an operational leader, as an AP, those are going to be your responsibilities. But as a principal, I immediately noticed that I am not the one that is constantly handling or tending to how the building runs, but it is my responsibility to create systems that makes sure that the building run smoothly. And that is the major difference. And so as we go through this discussion today to talk about 3 keys in terms of the leadership shift that you'll be able to, or that you'll need to be able to make, this is going to help you during your interview because you'll be able to speak to the responsibilities and the hiring committee can truly see, oh, this person knows what the job is all about, being an AP. All right, so let's get into our 3 keys today in terms of the leadership shift, the mindset that you need to have and understand as you are interviewing for your first school leadership role. And again, most of you are, through conversation, trying to be APs. All right, so key number one, operational leadership versus executive leadership. Again, assistant principals operate primarily as operational leaders. So any type of logistical issues, right? Tech issues, problem solving, you're going to be responsible for managing the day-to-day issues, supporting staff in the moment that is going to be you. So you have to understand yourself and the leadership capabilities and strengths that you have, so to start to develop your lens in terms of being an operational leader. It's kind of like you being a jack of all trades, right? And I'm not going to say the second part in terms of being a master of none, right? But you do have to be a jack of all trades. That doesn't mean that you're not going to be better in certain areas. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't master being an instructional leader, right? But when it comes to operational leadership, you're the one that's going to be implementing the testing schedule, right? When it comes to your statewide testing, you're the one that's going to be designing that. You might be the one facilitating your MTSS, or because I live in New Jersey, it's NJTSS meetings, right? You're going to be responsible for conducting those fire drills, right? Communicating with the secretary to make sure that they're scheduled with the fire department. All of those logistical day-to-day things that help the building run smoothly is going to be your responsibility as an AP. You are making sure the machine, the building, runs smoothly. But when you become a principal, the expectations change. Now you are an executive leader. And I like to think of it as in business terms, right? As a principal, you are the CEO, but as an AP, you are the COO, meaning as a principal, you are the chief executive officer, right? But as the AP, you are the chief operating officer, meaning that, again, operational leadership is your core responsibility. Because as a principal, you're setting the vision, you're aligning the leadership team, you're creating school-wide systems, you are establishing culture, and you are driving instructional priorities. So you're not just running the school, you're tending to the systems that help the school run smoothly. So if you have a discipline issue in your school, when you're a principal, it is your responsibility to then look at the systems that are in place to see what gaps you have collectively, but that is primarily your responsibility. Let's look at the systems that we have, look at the areas where we need to improve so that the culture, the climate can continue to change in a positive direction that aligns with the mission, the vision, and the core values. So again, number one, in terms of the major difference of being an AP and a principal, is as an AP, you are an operational leader, and as a principal, you are an executive leader. Number two, you go from solving problems to designing systems. So assistant principals often will ask, how do we handle this situation in the moment? Principals must ask, why does this situation keep happening? And more importantly, again, we talked about this in number one, but what system needs to exist so this happens less often? You know, one of the keys when I talk to teachers, one of the major differences between good principals and great principals is their ability to address the systems that are in place that help the teachers do their jobs effectively and at a high level. See, sometimes when we're looking at, as leaders, right, we might identify that a particular teacher needs better classroom management, right? But it cannot stop there. We have to be able to look at the system of support that we are able to provide the teacher so that they can improve their classroom management skills. See, as a leader, we have to constantly, as a principal, we have to constantly assess and examine the systems that we have in place. That's executive leadership. Instead of reacting to problems, you begin to think about the structures, the procedures, and the leadership alignment that is in place or lack thereof, and what needs to be addressed. Because great schools don't run on talent alone. They run on intentional systems. So key number two was, as an AP, you're going from solving problems. That's primarily what the AP role is about, right? We constantly hear about putting out fires, which is true. But when you move to the principal seat, you are now designing systems to address the problems. Key number 3, you go from managing the day to leading the organization. So we're talking a little bit about organizational leadership as well. Assistant principals spend a lot of time managing the day, but the principal has to manage something different, the direction of the school. Where are we going? You know, if you don't know where you're going as a leader, as a principal, then everything underneath or everything that's a part of the system is not going to run smoothly. You have to be responsible for setting the vision. You have to be responsible for articulating the vision. You can't just set it. You have to articulate it as well so that everybody is on the same page. What are going to be our standards at this particular school? And we cannot, I'm not saying that, and so here's my thing as a leader, right? Everybody should be treated equally, or not necessarily equally, right? But equitably. But the standards should not change. A teacher that has been at your school for 20 years, there might be some things in terms of you going to them asking for advice, a little bit more of partnership than actually you giving directives, right? Because they've demonstrated a level of expertise, a level of them longevity in terms of their teaching, right? So that they can be able to coach other people. They can be able to coach their newer teachers. But you have to be able to treat people equitably when it comes to being a leader. And so what that means is you being an organizational leader, you have to understand that we do need standards. The standards are not going to change, but I do have to lead equitably. And many times as leaders, we don't establish the standards that people are going to be able to lead under or teach under. And if we do establish those standards, we have to do a better job of articulating what they are. So as a principal, you are responsible for instructional priorities, leadership team development, staff culture, long-term improvement, and community trust. And as an AP, you're the one that's ensuring that the things that help the system operate smoothly, like these instructional priorities, you're the one that's tending to those on a daily basis. Being an operational leader, being a manager of the building, you have to ensure that things are running smoothly and you're tending to the needs of individuals, connecting with your custodians, connecting with your support staff, connecting with your paraprofessionals, connecting with your cafeteria staff, right? These are the primary responsibilities of being an AP. And when you get to your interview to talk about you trying to land that first leadership role, you have to have a great understanding of what the role is. And if you can articulate that you as an AP, you understand that you are an operational leader. You understand that your primary responsibility is to make sure that the mission, vision, and core values of the principal are being carried out on a day-to-day basis. That gives you a better opportunity to be hired by that interview committee, because that's what they're looking for. Do you understand what this role is all about? Or are you being aspirational in saying that, hey, I've been teaching for 15 years. I think that it's time for me to step into this leadership role. Well, guess what? What does that even mean, right? Do you understand what this role is all about? Just because you understand what teaching is about, you're an excellent teacher. Can you be an instructional leader? Can you be a manager of the building? Can you be an operational leader? And do you understand what that means? So this kind of sums up my first week as acting principal. You know, it was a great week. Everyone was welcoming. I noticed, though, the immediate shift in mindset that needed to happen, because I wasn't just running around making sure that the building was operating smoothly. But as you move into that principal seat, now you have to make sure that you are tending to the systems that allow the building to run smoothly. That is the major difference that I noticed in this first week. And these are some of the things that I help aspiring school leaders with in terms of coaching and leadership development. And so if you're somebody that you know you need a better understanding of what the AP role is all about, or you need interview preparation because you know that before you can even sit in the leadership seat, you have to nail that interview. If that's you, reach out. Let's have a conversation so we can get you to exactly where you need to be and land that first leadership role. As always, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you have a great week of teaching, leading, and learning. Take care.